Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, with Kwasi Kwarteng now out of the picture and Truss fading fast, just like to run through the steps they took in leaving us in the mess they've made, and why, despite Truss's massive climb down yesterday, the problem still hasn't gone away. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, to begin with, it's worth pointing out that Truss became Prime Minister with more urgent problems facing her than probably any new Prime Minister since Clement Attlee, who was tasked with rebuilding the country after the Second World War. This absolute mess that she has created is an extra urgent crisis that she has added on top. And the other problems, a declining economy, high inflation, rising interest rates, knackered NHS, rising cost of living, widespread industrial action, energy problems, out of control COVID infections, war in Europe, all these sort of things, and some of them are linked with each other. These problems are still there. They haven't gone away. She's just added an extra really serious one to go along with them. But anyway, let's go down the list of serious errors made by Truss and Kwarteng, all of which were deliberate acts of stupidity. The first was the sacking of Sir Tom Scholar, the most senior official at the Treasury at the time. That seems to have fallen under the radar a little bit, but that was what started it all off. As soon as Kwarteng was made Chancellor, Scholar was removed. Now, this was a dumb enough move in itself. The UK is facing a serious economic crisis, even before Truss walked into number 10. And Scholar was highly respected in both the City and Parliament, was experienced at going through economic tough times. A sensible Chancellor would have regarded him as the rock onto which to anchor their policy ideas. But no, Kwarteng saw him as a barrier to his policy ideas, sacked him. And to make matters worse, he was clear about why he sacked him. It's because Scholar was wedded to Treasury orthodoxy. As if that's a bad thing. Orthodoxy does sometimes need challenging. Of course it does, otherwise you'll get no progress. But only when you've got an evidence-based approach to do so. You must have evidence there's a better way. Over years, decades, and even centuries, we try different things out. Some things work, some things don't. Orthodoxy is just the things that consistently work. To sack a permanent secretary for this is to say that you're not interested in doing the things that have been shown to work. He sacked Scholar because he didn't want a permanent secretary who would act as a cautionary brake against Kwarteng's extreme policy aims. And it's worth noting that this act, which came before the mini-budget, that shook the markets a little as well. You know, we talk about the massive fallout in the markets from the mini-budget, but economists and city traders were already expressing serious concern about the removal of Scholar because they saw no good reason for it. The second big mistake was turning down the offer from the Office for Budgetary Responsibility to prepare an economic forecast to go along with the mini-budget statement. The government also lied about the reasons. They said that the OBR weren't able to prepare one in time. Not only did the OBR say this was nonsense, but the markets would have known it was ridiculous anyway. These people pay very careful attention to budgets, and some of those budgets have, in the past, been hastily arranged emergency budgets. The OBR always has a report to go with it. Also, how would it make sense that the Chancellor, a man who isn't an economist, yes, he's a historian of economics, but he's not an economist. So he's no experience of working as an economist. How was he able to work out his own figures more quickly than the experts? Doesn't make sense. This meant that when the mini-budget was delivered, the combination of removing a respected permanent secretary as well as refusing to accept an economic impact assessment could only signal to investors that the tax and spend plans had not been properly costed. So, of course, there was going to be a sudden and catastrophic loss of confidence in the pound. The third mistake was to lie about the scale of the tax cuts. Even now, Truss keeps insisting that we're all making this big fuss because we're moaning about the tax cuts but not the energy plan. But the tax cuts are a much smaller measure than the energy plan. But that's not true. She's basing this on the notion that the tax cuts £45 billion, or they were, but the energy plan is somewhere between 130 and 150 billion pounds. But that's dodgy accounting. The tax cuts were for £45 billion a year, The energy plan was for somewhere between 130 and 150 billion pounds over 2 years. And then that's that. So you look at the situation. So after 2 years, the energy plan ends. It's done with now. It's cost 130 billion pounds, a bit more. I don't know. Difficult to say because the government won't publish their figures. But after that 2 years, the tax cuts, if they'd have gone ahead as intended, would have amounted to 90 billion pounds. Now that's still less. But then you look after 3 years, the tax cuts are now up to 135 billion pound cost to us. So now it's on the same as the energy plan because that's finished. That finished after 2 years. No more of it. Then, you know, and the tax cuts keep costing us each year another 45 billion pounds. So after 6 years, they've cost us over £250 billion. Now, if our national infrastructure and public services were all doing well, that would be fine. But they're knackered, failing. You can do a lot with £250 billion, you know. But although this lie could fool members of the public, because they won't think of it like that, they'll go, oh, yeah, 45 billion pounds, oh yeah, 150 billion pounds more. It's not going to fool the markets, is it? They know what it means. They understand it. And it wasn't even a useful lie to use on the public even, because their main concern was the loss of pension and increase in mortgage rates. Then the fourth mistake, and one they continue to make, is to fail to understand that the problems are not going to end until they have got a fully costed, responsible budget. This is ultimately what has upset the markets. The public were outraged at the idea of tax cuts for the rich. The markets weren't. They don't care about that. They just wanted it to be costed. Liz Truss sacked her Chancellor and reversed her position on the corporation tax. But government bonds are still being sold off. We're now waiting for the start of next week, I suppose, to see just how bad the concerns are around the world. But the reason her action yesterday didn't draw a line under the issue is because she's still not presented a costed budget. She's halved the amount of uncosted tax cuts that she wants now, with the U-turns on corporation tax and the top rate of income tax. But she's still saying she wants uncosted tax cuts. And until she stops saying that, either by getting rid of even those tax cuts or by explaining how she's going to pay for them, the problem's not going to go away. That is why the economy is still facing a serious threat. And the fifth mistake was losing trust. You know, Truss and Kwarteng made a horrendous error with their budget. In fact, I've detailed 4 basic errors of judgment here. But it's possible that that's all it was. Yes, a big mistake, as mistakes go. You know, this isn't like leaving the milk out of the fridge all night. This was the mother of all mistakes, really. But it could still have been just that. And they could still have claimed that they were genuinely acting in the best interests of the country if they'd been a little bit more honest. You know, they could have rescued the situation. But they weren't. They told lies, stupid lies. Politicians do tell lies at times. Sometimes, I suppose, you have to. But these were the dumbest lies that couldn't ever be believed. They tried to blame the problem on global issues. I mean, there is a global turndown, isn't there? You know, certainly, absolutely. But we made it much worse. I mean, how many other major economies have U-turned on a load of economic policies and had their Chancellor leave an IMF meeting just to come home early to be sacked? If it's a global issue, why haven't other governments sacked their Secretaries of State for the Treasury? Then they attacked the Bank of England. The bank saved their arse. Their intervention prevented a run on the pound. Everyone in the know could see that. At the Tory party conference, Truss started raging about the anti-growth coalition. Oh, nice one. That'll calm the markets down, let them think our Prime Minister's a deranged conspiracy theorist. Great. Instead of just realising that they'd messed up badly and just think, right, let's put this right. And they could have gone, you know, oh, these are the right ideas, but we haven't laid the ground. And they did sort of try and say that we've got the communication wrong. Okay, you got the communication wrong. Stick to that line. Abandon the mini budget, apart from the energy plan, and then introduce it later on when you've got your communication sorted. But no, they forged ahead. You know, they kept up with the lies. And once you start down the path of stupid lies, they have to become more and more extreme to keep going. You know, oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. And this mistake may well be the biggest of them all, because it means that people now fundamentally can't trust anything Liz Truss says. The markets don't trust her. So it may now be the case that Tory MPs have to get rid of her quickly. Like before yesterday, that disastrous press conference, they may have imagined they could take their time in replacing her, maybe by the end of the year. But that press conference yesterday was all sorts of awful. Conservative MPs may be facing up to the fact that the economy is not going to stabilise until she's actually gone. As I say, we'll have to see what the economic news is on Monday. But if last week was fast moving, it may well be that next week really races along. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.